this meeting to order. Start with the invocation and pledge. Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for our gathering. Remind all of us who draw a paycheck from the city in any way that we are the servants of the citizens of Reading and that we need to do what is right for them. In Jesus' name, amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Mrs. Kutcher is out sick, so I'm taking notes. We're going to go a little slower than normal because of that. So the roll call, Mr. Powell.
Here.
Mr. Bronner.
Here.
Mr. Bishop.
Here.
Mr. Boehner.
Here.
Mr. Tommen.
Here.
Mrs. Kroger.
Here.
Mrs. Edichico.
Here.
7 present. We have a quorum for business, and we have a legislative quorum. All righty. We have no minutes to approve this evening. I guess we'll catch up on that next meeting. Audience participation. This is good. This is a better turnout than I normally see. Thank you all for coming. Does anyone in the audience wish to speak to council, wish to address council in any form, for any reason? So there's something I was reminded of because it's in the rules, and I have forgotten to say this. But there's a whole thing about this is a meeting of the City of Council of the City of Reading made public for conducting the business of council and is not to be considered a community forum. For those who wish to address council, please approach the podium, state your name and address. At this time, you'll be allotted 5 minutes to speak. When you're finished speaking, please return to your seat. And council members may comment or answer questions if needed. Council members or the city administration may address anything said during audience participation. That's coming from old council rules, but I think they're going to be readopted at some point. So, with that said, Mr. Orman, please state your name, address.
All right, Patrick Orman, 2720 Maple Tree Court. And I really just kind of real quickly wanted to ask about, and I sent an email to Bo about this earlier, just our city website. And is that city website, is this something we maintain ourselves in the office, or do we pay a service to maintain this website? Because it's considerably outdated at this point right now. I was trying to do some research on it, and for example, most of you up here representing us today aren't even listed on the website as being our representatives. The old council's still in there. Emails aren't listed for anybody but Katie, and I don't even think Dave's was in there. I did actually try to use the Reading email addresses that were given to me by some members who did know them, and they don't actually work. At least they didn't work from my Gmail account. They were all bounced back. Just a lot of outdated information. I was trying to do research on, the ordinance that I'm invested in with the unsolicited materials. I can't find that anywhere in the codified ordinances, which I believe probably should be published somehow, some way, and maybe that's why Velasquez doesn't feel like they need to honor that. Just wanted to double check and see who's in charge of our website in the city.
Well, first off, Pat, I think I did respond to you. We're in the process of going to a new company there. When I became our mayor, we didn't have a web page, and we've never had anybody full-time to take care of it. We're understaffed here. We're all very, very busy. And over the years, it's been a multitude of different people. And we're now searching through that, and soon it'll be updated as best as possible. There's a multitude of things that go on here, things with public works, things with police and fire, a multitude of different things, and we need someone that will be the central contact for that, and we simply never had it. I could go through the long story there. Just as our Reading schools, one of the reasons they're here tonight is to confront financial challenges and to be stable for the future. We've been through that for the last 20 years here. And, the way we've had to deal with that is to cut people. So anyway, we're short-staffed here. We struggle. We'll do our best. But like I told Patrick, there's an old saying, if at first you don't succeed, try again. There's plenty of ways for people to get the knowledge they need.
Oh.
Please call us. I give my number out all the time, but we are working with a company now, and it isn't as simple as snapping a finger.
Okay, and that's why I just wanted to, as usual, I don't stand up here and, make a complaint about something I'm not willing to help with. So if that was anything that I could have helped with or could help with, I certainly would do that. And if you did respond to me, I apologize, I missed it. I didn't hear anything about that we were getting a new company for it. If you sent that, I apologize, I missed it. But and as far as the email addresses, is that handled externally too? Because all of your new city email addresses don't work. I've tried, Mr. Bishop's and Mr. Dom's and Ms. Kroger's city emails. They just bounce back to me as can't find the email address. So.
Well, except for Carla's, very, very soon, it should be our first initials, our last names at readingohio.org, and Reading is spelled out, Ohio is spelled out. We had some confusion over that too. But I found out today Carla's is the one that isn't, because she's the one I tried to email today. So she said she already has 4 email addresses and doesn't want a 5th. So we're going to.
It's a system problem for sure. I mean, mine wasn't working today when I was trying to send something out. So it's something we are exploring, and it needs to be fixed as soon as possible.
And just super quick recycling announcement. I posted it today on the forum and on my Walk with Purpose. As of today, Reading did add, or not Reading, Rumpke added some new items that can be put into your recycle bin. They can now accept cups, Starbucks cups, McDonald's plastic cups, basically disposable drink cups, as long as they're not red Solo party cups. They say they can't recycle those, but basically any other drink cup that's disposable fast food Dunkin' Donuts type of cup, you can now put into your recycle bins or carts. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ormond. Just to piggyback on some of your remarks and some of Mr. Tommen's remarks, I did a little bit of attempted troubleshooting between me and some of the people on council and our clerk through via various emails. It looks to me like among us, the email works, but trying to get outside or get any outside information in does not work. And that's going to be problematic because we need communication.
Absolutely.
All right.
To me, I just hope the day never comes where phone calls become obsolete. I truly hope. So please call us.
Jen, did you want to speak?
I knew you were going to call me out for some reason.
That's right. You know why? What happened over the weekend?
Well, I talked to Bill about it.
So we need to make sure other people are aware.
So I live on, Jennifer Dick, 227 Harvest. I live off of Galbraith. I guess most of you guys probably know, but occasionally, our street was dedicated in 1981 to Reading, and occasionally when something comes up, we get treated like the redheaded stepchild where, nobody wants to claim us. Sorry, Angel. Nobody wants to claim us. So I didn't know if there was and Dave had given me the paperwork a couple years ago, that showed that we were dedicated when Tony was mayor. But I didn't know if there was something like a computer file or just so everybody knows that, we are actually part of Reading. No, that was it.
Does this happen every time? Was this
The snow?
yes?
Oh,
It's snow
no.
removal.
No. We've never, this is the first time. Our city guys are amazing. And Matt Morgan was the one that actually came up, and he was, shout out to him because he did a great job. He told me told my husband the snow would be melted within the hour, and I'm like, yeah, right. And within minutes, you could see it melting away. So I don't know what he used, but.
Well, just to follow up there, I got 2 calls Saturday morning. I called Daryl Courtney. We had an unexpected snow. The guys were called out at 1 a.m. Saturday morning, and then had a massive water main break on Furman. And so before Harvest Lane was was
And,
dealt
and
with.
to be clear, because it was somehow routed through Hamilton County, we don't know if that's where the confusion came through, that, maybe that Hamilton County had talked to one of the officers and there was confusion about whether, we have a Cincinnati zip code and stuff, so I don't know if that had anything to do with, us not getting covered, after the calls, but yeah, there was the water main. So we're not complaining at all. I just wanted to let everybody know that we are actually part of Reading. So,
Well, if the call went to Cincinnati, you weren't going to get plowed.
yeah, I don't know how, because we had a couple people where Dwight was trying to help us too, so somehow it went through Hamilton County, and one of the police officers had said, oh, well, that's not part of Reading, we don't handle that. So anyway, there was some confusion, but we never had trouble out of the city, guys, so I don't want anybody to think I'm knocking them, because they are great. We love them.
There you go. Hopefully it'll never happen again, so.
Oh, and I had read your mayor's report before I came.
Yes.
So I saw you mention something about the neighborhood watch, if you can expand on that when you're.
We know several different times, just like with Adopt the Streets, over the years, we've had those programs before. I forget how many years ago already, within the last 10 years, Neighborhood Watch became very, very important. Our police chief and some of our lieutenants had people come in here to City Hall, explain to people, things that we recommend that you do and things we recommend that you don't do. One of them has been in my report ever since. If you see suspicious or illegal activity, call the police immediately. They enjoy those calls. But if there's an interest again, Chief Edens and his lieutenants will start that up again. I know Tommen was a part of that. I bet it's been 6, 8, 10 years ago, and then it kind of goes its way, and then it rises back up. But it's one I put out there from time to time. If people are interested to become more involved, we have educational materials that truly help with it.
Well, Chief Snow and Officer Magley had done something
Sure.
several years ago.
Yes.
There was a lot of people here, so it was really interesting, so.
But if there's an interest, please call me or contact City Hall, and they'll gladly do that again.
Okay.
The main thing for us, is to have neighbors look out for each other, get to know your neighbors, look out for them. We can't be everywhere all the time, so if we're going to be a truly safe city, we need all of us to help. And like I say, even if it's something suspicious, call our police and let them figure it out. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? We have another pair of people. Great. By the way, for those watching online, we have I think I counted 46 seats in here this time. Somebody added one from last time. But we only have 20 people here. We need more people to show up. So, ladies, please.
All right, I'm Crystal Menner, 2401 East Galbraith Road.
I'm Beth Warner, 1102 Jefferson.
So hello, everybody. I wanted to start off by saying congratulations to all the new faces on council. Excited to start working with all of you. As I stated before, I'm Crystal Menner, and I've been on the school board for a little over 2 years now. Beth Warner has been on the board a little over 4 years and is the president of the board. On January 5th at our school board meeting, we introduced a new committee, and it's called the City School Relations Committee. So we know the community wanted some communication. The school board wanted communication with the city, so we felt that this would be the best thing for us as a city whole. This will help us grow together and also be able to share thoughts and ideas that can help us become a better team. We wanted to bring it up tonight to see who would be interested. I'll be the chairperson. Beth will also be joining from the school board, and we'd be looking for 2 to 3 members from the city to be involved as well. So you can let us know tonight. You can email me. My email is cmenner, M-E-N-N-E-R, @readingschools.org. And we're looking to have our first meeting in February, probably thinking once a quarter, and then obviously if needed in between, we would adjust accordingly. So yeah, just wanted to bring that up tonight just to see if anybody was interested. Just think we need better communication within the city, in school, and just to help build the team.
Well, I'd love to be a part of it, so mark me down.
Same here.
Perfect.
I'd like to volunteer for that committee also.
Okay, perfect. Well, I will get email addresses, and if they bounce back, I can get numbers, and we'll worry about that. But I appreciate that, because I think more than anything, we want to work together and just keep it growing. So, thank you.
Thanks. Any questions for us, or? Okay. We look
Well,
forward
my
to working
email
with you.
address has worked with our schools for long as I remember. So.
I have a question. I've seen everybody post on Facebook about,
Hey, Jen,
Super Bowl.
can you please come up to the microphone and say it where everybody can hear it?
It wasn't that important. I was just teasing her.
Okay, other audience participation. Don't tell me everybody's here just to sit and listen. Okay. Seeing none, moving on, reading of communications. I don't have any that were sent to me. Does anyone on council have any communications sent to them that they would like to have read into the record? All right, seeing none. We have two guest speakers. First on the list is Mr. Jason Enix, Superintendent of Reading Schools. Mr. Enix.
Are we going to head out?
Do you have a presentation? All right, so we're going to watch Mr. Enix's presentation from that side of the screen.
Would it help for some of the lights to go off, do you think, or do you want to wait and see? It looks clear.
See what everybody else thinks. I'll let you decide, Bill.
Lights on or off? That's good, perfect.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. And first of all, I'd like to thank Mayor Bemis and council for allowing me to present tonight. As you saw previously, our board president, Beth Wernery, and board member Crystal Memmer is also here in the audience tonight, so I appreciate them being here as well. I approached Mayor Bemis a few weeks ago at the wrestling tournament and talked with them about how to help get the message out about our school district, and particularly in the upcoming levy campaign that the Board of Education approved with a resolution to proceed back in early January. And I really broached the topic on coming to City Council as, we talk quite a bit at our school board meetings about all things related to school district finance and the future of the district, but from a different venue and a different place with a different audience, asked to be a part of a council meeting, and of course that led to being here tonight. So first of all, I'd like to, again, thank everyone for being here and for allowing the opportunity to share a few words here tonight. I did give a copy of this presentation electronically earlier this evening to Ms. Albrink, and it's not Albrink anymore. I know that's how it comes up on my email, but she does have this, and hopefully she'll be able to share this with all of the council members and administration at a later time. Our goal here tonight is really a couple of different things. First of all, it's an educational piece in a lot of different ways. School finance is a very complicated matter, and for those of you on City Council, I know that you understand the complexities of finance within a local organization. It's really important to understand kind of the nuts and bolts of how school finance works, and it's very difficult to explain. Thankfully, tonight, we have our new treasurer. That is her first day on the job today, Jen Burke. She is here. I'd like to introduce her as well. We will be working very closely together as superintendent and treasurer of the school district, and she may be able to jump in and help out with a few questions later on. The other item is share is really more of a history of our district and where we are and what's leading to our current financial situation, and really talk a little bit about how that translates to what's happening in the future. Really going to try to make this as simple as possible for a very complicated topic, and that is school finance. And really we are funded in three specific piles or buckets of money, if you want to think of it that way. First of all, is state funding. This is a very complex calculation that's based on a lot of different factors, including enrollment, local ability to generate funds, and operating requirements. As you might imagine, we have a lot of different requirements that we have to follow. We don't have a choice in ways in which we have to operate. So all of this creates a portion of our school district budget, which is our state funding. There's been a lot of talk about state funding in this current biennium and leading up to this current biennium with the state government. The Fair School Funding Plan got a lot of traction and direction for this particular biennium, but it was a 6-year phase-in. And we are currently in year 1 of that phase-in, and there's no guarantee that that phase-in will actually reach its finality 6 years from now. So that is a continuing moving target for school districts to understand what the implications are. The second piece is federal funding. These are federal dollars that come to support specific programs. These have specific requirements to them. We have to spend money in certain ways to support certain programs. This is not part of our general fund, part of our local generated dollars, but it's specific to certain programs. You might have heard of something called Title I reading as an example. This provides reading intervention and support for students that qualify and need that. That is one example. There are many examples of that, but they have to be used for certain reasons. These are restricted funds, meaning specific reasons in which those are spent. You've also may have heard a lot about something called ESSER funding. This is new federal dollars that have come to school districts as part of pandemic relief. Thought of much like a stimulus check that, we'll talk a little bit more about that, how that looked at later, but it's very much like a stimulus check for school districts, specifically for pandemic-related response. Can use that for new programs, could use it for infrastructure, could use it for current ways in which money is being spent in a school district. But those ESSER funds are one-shot payments to school districts to help offset the impact of the pandemic. We are currently receiving about 15% of our district budget from federal funding. That was from the 2021 CUP report, fiscal year 2021. The state share currently, or as of the fiscal year 2021 CUP report, that is 33% of our district budget. And of course, the local side of school funding is again where the remainder of the school district's budget comes from. The last new operating levy for the district was in 2009, a 5.7 mil emergency levy. It has been renewed twice, and when we say renewal, it may show up as a different number, and you might ask the question, well, why is that looking like it's a different number? It is a different number. It was an increased millage for that renewal, but it did not generate any new tax revenue for the school district, and I'll explain that here in just a moment. In 2018, it was renewed once again for a continuing levy at 6.43 mils. And it's important to note that currently 1 mil in Reading is equal to approximately $208,000. We'll talk a lot about round numbers tonight for the sake of talking. Of course, this is approximate. There are dollars and cents to go with this, but this is round numbers we'll be speaking about, generally speaking. Currently, according to the CUP report in 2021, 37% of our district budget is paid for through local dollars. I mentioned a little bit earlier about ESSER funding. We've, again, received 3 rounds of that over the past couple of years. Specific, again, to pandemic-related responses, it can be used for current expenditures, which we've done quite a bit of. Additional personnel, additional programming, infrastructure improvements. The majority of these funds that have come to our district have been primarily used to offset current planned operating expenses. So that's just a really important piece of it. And what's important about that is that it has allowed us to offset our general fund to go from an expected levy in 2020 that was stated in the November 2019 5-year forecast all the way out here until May of 2022. And so again, we can thank those ESSER funds to help offset the district budget and extend the life of our current budget out till 2022 without coming to the public with additional requests. I'm going to get a little bit in the weeds here, but it's really important to talk about something called House Bill 920. If you've not been in education, you've probably never heard about it, and I can probably tell you most people in education really haven't heard about it either. But House Bill 920 is something that school districts are continuing to be plagued by here 50 years later. House Bill 920 was passed in 1976. And essentially what this means is that we are capped in the amount of revenue that we can generate from a local levy. So in other words, it freezes the income at the rate in which it was originally voted in. So as property values increase, and I know that's a hot topic in the community and in Hamilton County right now, property values may increase, but it does not have an impact on increased school district revenue. It does not increase the tax revenue to school districts. And that might come as a surprise, but the concept of this is kind of dates back to how the country was founded. It's that idea of not having any more taxation without representation. If the public votes in a new levy issue, we are not permitted to collect any more money than what that levy was generated. So as property values go up, the effective millage actually comes down from what the voters had voted in. So that is a very complicated concept that I'll try to make a little bit simpler here in the next slide. But the bottom line is, with a fixed income, which is essentially what school districts are, increased costs, inflation, statutory requirements and such do have an impact on the district's bottom line without an increased and sustainable revenue. That's a really important concept, and it really, again, it's something that plagues districts. Every single district around the state has to deal with this. The bottom line is, without fixed income and increased cost, we do what's called deficit spending. And as we deficit spend, by law, school districts are not permitted to operate in the negative. And that's what generates the need to either cut costs or increase revenue, or a combination of the two. Found this slide that's down at the bottom is where it came from, but this is a conversion going back to 2009 of what $1 was equal to then, which of course was $1, and what that would actually be equal to today in terms of purchasing power. It's the concept of inflation, of course. What a dollar is equal to 13 years ago to what is equal to now. I think we all understand we can't buy as much now as we could with a dollar back then. So this kind of gives you a table of what amounts of money might be equal to in today's dollars. And again, the idea with that is it does have an impact on what you can purchase because of the cost of things going up. I'm going to give an example from a household. So trying to take school district finance and put it into more everyday terms. Let's pretend for just a second that we're looking at a family with a $60,000 annual income back in 2009. With no additional income since 2009, purchasing power has decreased. We all know that our grocery bills have gone up, electricity has gone up, so has gasoline, living expenses, housing, entertainment, and really anything that is in our everyday budget. What you can purchase in 2022 on the same income is less than what it was 13 years ago. I think that's something that intuitively everybody understands. We talked about the ESSER funding being a stimulus check. Well, many people got a stimulus check during the pandemic from the government. Could do whatever you choose with that money. Could either do a home improvement, save it for house payment and electric bills and all those kind of things, put it in the bank, whatever it is that you wanted to do, you're able to do that. In some ways, that's exactly how the ESSER funding worked for a school district. But the bottom line is, with this scenario, this would result in everyone having to reduce their household expenditures because they're on a flat income. So how does that translate to a school district? The previous example is pretty similar to where we are as a school district. The last new local operating funds were approved in 2009. This has been renewed twice, as I stated before, but our salaries, benefits, and operating expenses have increased without any inflationary increases to go along with it. In other words, we are on a fixed income, and our expenses are outpacing what our current expenditures are, through really nothing that we have a lot of control over, to be very honest. That ESSER funding provided rounds of stimulus funds to be used for pandemic-related expenses. Again, we use those in a variety of ways, but much of those funds have already been allocated for already existing expenses. That's what's called in the education world supplanting, meaning it's already there. We're just going to take those ESSER funds and supplant into the already planned for expenditures. Over the last number of years, there have been reductions to the school district budget. There was $1.1 million or so back in the early 2020, right before I started in the district. And there was an additional $720,000 of reductions in June of 2020 as a result of state budget reductions at that time. This is really going to what I've just spoken about with our recent history. And back in 2019, there was a 5-year forecast, did anticipate a new operating levy that was needed in the district for 2020. The district had received a precautionary watch letter from the Ohio Department of Education saying that we were starting to look as though we were in trouble and needed a plan for how to get out of that trouble financially. There was a plan submitted which included those reductions, as well as an upcoming planning or discussion of a levy campaign. Shortly after that, the pandemic hit. Unlike something that ever had happened I believe in our history, the state reduced school district budgets in May of 2020. That was unheard of, and it really sent kind of shockwaves around the education world because suddenly money that was planned to come in to pay for things that are regular expenditures like salaries, benefits, and operating expenses was suddenly reduced without warning. And as a result, we had to act on that as well, particularly being in a fiscal concern anyway. We made an additional $720,000 of reductions for the 2021 school year. Talk in the next few lines about CARES Act funding, which is now known as ESSER 1, as well as our ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 fund allocations. Again, these are funds that we have been able to use to offset expenditures. We've added a few additional programs to support students through this pandemic. But the bottom line is those are one-shot payments that are not sustainable revenue. They don't last forever. Which leads us to where we are currently. Back in the fall, the District Finance Committee met twice in 2021. I know there are a couple people here in the room that are on that Finance Committee, and we appreciate your cooperation and your work on that committee. It was determined that a new revenue was necessary for district operations. We analyzed multiple scenarios. The first one was a 16 mil operating levy, which is what the levy modeling forecasting software was really predicting would be what our district would need. We looked at a 9.99 mil operating levy with concurrent reductions, as well as a 9.99 mil operating levy without reductions planned to go along with it. The Finance Committee recommended to the Board of Education a 9.99 mil operating levy for May of 2022. That will generate approximately $2 million annually for the district. It will maintain our current operating levels, and to go along with that, the Finance Committee really looked at what the implications were if it wasn't successful and made recommendations of $1.3 million worth of reductions for next school year if we don't have any additional revenue from this operating levy. The Board of Education took action on those recommendations on December 15th as well as January 5th. Those were procedural ways to proceed with being on the ballot in May of 2022. One of the things that's always asked, of course, is what does this mean? What's it going to mean to citizens, to families, and people of the community? We've got a couple of different scenarios up here, a $100,000 home and a $200,000 home. We would look at the assessed value of those. Again, that's determined by the county auditor. Multiply that by 1 mil, and it leads to what 9.99 mils is equal to. It would cost a $100,000 home would be in the neighborhood of around $29 to $30 per month. A $200,000 home would be in the neighborhood of $58 per month. I don't really expect all of you to see all of those numbers, trust me. This is our current 5-year forecast in a snapshot format. What I just want to point to is this blue box right here. This is fiscal year 2025, and you might ask, why are we looking at that box? Well, that box is what the state of Ohio is going to be looking at when we get to the May forecast in 2022. Start looking to see where we become negative. And if we start becoming negative in a very close window, we start getting that precautionary watch letter from the state of Ohio once again, and we have to have a plan in place to get out of that. So a picture does tell 1,000 words. This graph right here is a relationship with our general fund and where we are in terms of percentage above 0. And it's very clear that when something goes into the red, that's just generally not good. That is showing you a pictorial representation of what those numbers are showing above. The bottom line here, if you can't really read it very well, but this box says negative $2.6 million in fiscal year 2025. We are not able to operate in the negative. So we have one of two options. We really need to add additional revenue, or we have to make significant reductions so that that number becomes at least zero, and it really needs to be above zero. The difference here, and this is the levy scenario that the Finance Committee looked at, the blue box is what happens if we were to be successful with this levy campaign in May, and you will see that in 2025 that number would be positive by $2.4 million and does not become negative until fiscal year 27. If we were not to be successful, this drops off pretty quickly in fiscal year 23, significantly more in 24, and of course the negative $2.6 million in 2025. So very clearly then the implications are that if we're not successful in May, and remember that this was really anticipated to be 2 years ago, and going all the way back to the bond issue in 2015, there was an operating levy that was discussed even at that time. And here we are in 2022 before that request has actually been made. The question, why $1.3 million? Again, $2.6 million 2 years out would really mean that we have to look at $1.3 million over a 2-year period in order to get that number to at least zero. And again, I've mentioned that we are not permitted by law to operate with a negative cash balance, so it's something we have to find a way to make above zero. The question then also is why in May? Why not wait until November? Well, school years operate, and what a school year is. We start in August, we end in May, and if we were not to make any reductions prior to the 22-23 school year, we really would lose another full year of savings by doing the reductions at a year later in time. So in other words, going in May, if we were to not be successful, those reductions could be implemented for the 22-23 school year, and therefore we affect a much greater amount of savings to the district because of not spending those dollars in 22-23. That is the reason why we would be out in May of this coming school year, or May of this year, in advance of next school year. The question that number two that most people ask with any levy campaign is, what, aside from what's it going to cost, what happens if it doesn't pass? So our administrative team has been working very hard over the past couple of months to identify what that $1.3 million would equal. And the bottom line is it will touch every aspect of the district. We are a pretty lean organization. There was already $1.8 million worth of reductions 2 years ago. So to take another 1.3 would have significant impacts on staffing, which would then lead to increased class sizes, fewer course offerings at the junior senior high school. That's the programming reductions that would hit specials, electives, minimum class sizes for course offerings at the junior senior high school. We would not be adding any additional personnel or services as outside of what would be required to be added. Again, we do have some requirements that we have to do. It would be touching administration, support personnel, operations, the athletic department, budget reductions, which would increase our pay to participate fees for those students that are in the athletic program. And of course, our supplies and materials, which touches on things like technology, curriculum, and other building budgets would all be hit. I can tell you the hours and hours and hours spent trying to identify $1.3 million out of our budget. There is no way to do that without significantly damaging the district. And the truth is, if those things were to go away, they really have a very difficult, if ever, time coming back. Because even if a levy were to pass, bringing those things back just eats into what we've just passed as a school district with that levy campaign. So these really do start looking like permanent reductions from our school district. This is a little blurry. I apologize for that. This is the most up-to-date community conversation schedule. We have a very thorough schedule through February and all the way through April with different locations, times, ways in which there is a way to meet with us, myself, Ms. Burke. Sometimes we have administrators that will join us. We do these through Zoom. In the evenings, we will do them in person at a lunch place. We had this morning a community drop-in for coffee. We did have 2 people show up this morning between 7 and 8:30 to share with us their thoughts and questions, concerns, comments, those sorts of things. We encourage people to get involved and understand. I think we have a really good story to tell, one of really very strong fiscal responsibility for this district. 13 years between a new levy operating asks is really very nearly unheard of in public education. It does show a commitment by this Board of Education and boards previous to be very fiscally responsible and conservative with our approach, and that continues to be the case today. So again, pushing out an expected campaign 2 years because we've been in a pandemic was a real strong value that the board had, and we made the adjustments to make that happen. If there are questions, we do have a separate email address, questions@readingschools.org, that we monitor all the time. We'll get back with you with answers to questions so that people can be informed and stay informed about the questions they have about our school district. And some of those questions, and I'm going to run through these very quickly with that we know are questions that people have, that we have an answer for, and want to be able to share that with you today. One of the things is about the stadium. That seems to be a hot topic. Does the district own the stadium? The answer to that question is no. The district does not own the stadium. It is owned by the City of Reading. We do have a lease agreement with the city to utilize the stadium as part of our athletic program, and that's an agreement that we have. But this levy, of course, does nothing about the stadium. It's strictly a city-owned property that we do not have any ownership in as a school district. Has the board made a decision about the future of the central property? We know that's also a hot topic as well. That's been a topic at the Buildings and Grounds Committee for quite some time. The Board of Education has approved keeping that property on Bonnell to be a school district asset, and it does not have any specific plans for the future. The Buildings and Grounds Committee continues to revisit this. We've done a lot of looking into what it would cost to turn that property into field space. I've shared a number of presentations with costs that would be associated with regrading it. There's damage to that property right now that would have to be fixed before it could ever be used as a district field space. That is an outlay of cash that's currently not in the budget. So that is where we are currently with the central property. If the district sold the property, it's really important to understand that that revenue could not be used for operating expenses. So just because it is a district asset, it does not mean it could be sold to offset district operating costs. And that, again, we deal with complex financial things, but that does not allow us to use for operating expenses. Got a comparison here of operating expenses per pupil and how we stack up compared to similar districts around the state. I point out right here, our per pupil expenditure is $10,000 and change. Similar districts, which locally, the state of Ohio identifies 20 similar districts for comparison's sake around the state. You can do that very easily on ODE's website. You can see what districts would be compared to us. Locally, the ones that you might have some knowledge about would be Deer Park and Norwood. This is similar district average across the state is almost $13,000 per pupil, and the state average is just over $13,000 per pupil. So what we are paying and spending per pupil is certainly less than our comparison districts around the state. It's important to revisit what 9.99 mils means for Reading. Again, 1 mil generates about $208,000 in our community. If you were to go across city lines to different municipalities, 1 mil would generate a very different number. Again, it's all based upon the assessed value of property. 9.99 mils, again, does bring in approximately $2 million annually for the district. This is just to try to help clarify. 9.99 mils does not mean $9.99 million. I have heard that. I think there is a misconception out there among lots of people that that's what that means. 9.99 mils is about $2 million annually for our district. Another question is about fundraisers to pay for operating expenses. There are private schools that have these big fundraisers that help for their costs and so on. But in schools, we don't have that same ability. Again, we operate by different standards that we have to by the state of Ohio. We are not able to do that. So there are fundraisers certainly that happen. Boosters, PTOs, and those sorts of nonprofit organizations can do fundraisers, and they can donate money to the school district. But as a school district, we cannot do fundraisers to offset our own general fund dollars. The next question is about the Hilltop Athletic Complex. Was it paid for through district operating funds? The answer to that question is no. It was paid for as part of improvements to the Hilltop property a number of years ago. Those were where those funds came from. It's important to note, though, that the debt service on the loan for that, however, does get paid for through general operating funds. 2 more questions, and I'm almost finished. Thank you for your patience. Why has the district waited until now to be back on the ballot? Kind of have answered that all along. Following 2009, the levy was already renewed on 2 different occasions. Of course, there was a bond issue to build the brand-new building that's at the top of the hill, a beautiful place we get to live now. That is, again, a bond issue. Any bond funds can't be used for district operating expenses. They're 2 different pots of money. They can't be interchanged. So at that time, it was stated that there would need to be new operating funds even when the bond issue was passed. Again, through fiscal responsibility, reductions, ESSER funding, all of those factors have led us all the way out to 2022 before being out to ask for new additional funds. And another last topic, 2 topics rolled into one. How much revenue has the recent TIF agreement generated, and what about the Duke pipeline? Well, at this time, no revenue has been collected from the TIF agreement, and it's not projected to in the near future. So we're not seeing any revenue from that right now. We don't anticipate it for at least a couple more years, if then, and so it's not accounted for in the district budget. The Duke pipeline, while I know that there was a lot of work done over the summer, certainly, to get that in place, we're not seeing any revenue from that either. It has to be operational, functional, and so on. And until we have more information, you cannot count on that being a generated amount of additional funds for the district. So it is not incorporated into our forecast at this time because we don't know what the impact might be in the future. So those are things that are out there that are not new revenue sources for us in the immediate future. And I want to make sure we touch on that. That is a very popular question that is asked. So with that, I do appreciate your time. This probably went longer than I anticipated. However, I felt it was really important to give you as much information as possible. And again, we are easily accessible. We have a lot of different times. If you want to come and have a conversation with myself and Ms. Burke, we're happy to do so. Reach us at questions@readingschools.org. We are willing to meet, talk, and share information with you at any time. So again, members of council, administration, thank you very much for your opportunity for us to be here tonight, and happy to answer any questions through that venue at that time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Enix. Members of council, does anyone have any questions for Mr. Enix? Mr. Boehner?
I've got a quick question. Sure. It's not a gotcha question or anything like that. It's something
Can you,
I'm thinking about off and on.
Mr. Boehner? Mr. Boehner?
When they passed the levy to build the schools, one of the topics then was that the school be more efficient, moving everything up together.
Hold on a second.
So,
Hold on a second. We gotta get this on.
no, I'm sorry.
We gotta get this on audio. Open meeting.
When they passed the levy to build it, and I'm not sure, you might not even been here then, but the word was, through all the campaign and whatever, that building the school on that site, put all 3 schools in one place, would generate some savings because it'd be more efficient. And that was the reason why they didn't think they were going to need a levy in the next year or 2. Now we're hitting with what I think is a pretty big levy. Can you address that at all, or is that, are we mistaken on that?
I don't think, not mistaken. Do this. As far as the questions about efficiency, as a district that all functions under one roof with all of the latest and greatest of technology that's in the building, the efficiency and ways in which we operationally happen, I would say the answer to that is yes. While we don't see, we have a comprehensive preventive maintenance plan that we need to make sure it's much like your home, right? You maintain your home, it'll last longer. We have a comprehensive maintenance plan in place through Omnia 360. They're our provider. We do have a regular expenditure to do that preventive maintenance work. But what we're not doing is a lot of break-fix work, which, you know, in old systems and old buildings, you do a lot of that as opposed to preventive maintenance. There comes a time when fixing something is better than maintaining it. So I think you're talking about efficiency from that standpoint, yes. Operationally within the district, having everybody in one building, from an educational perspective, I would say it's also much more efficient as well. We've been, our administrative team has been reconfigured since we've been up there to try to be more efficient with our personnel and meeting the strategic plan that has been put together last year. So yes, efficiency is important, and being all on one site does allow for that to happen. Yeah.
Any others, members of council?
Mr. Enix, thanks for coming in and presenting. I think that was a lot of information, perhaps more information than the prior council had received in many years, and especially in one shot. So you, in your presentation, you mentioned that the original thought or the study was to ask for 16 mills. Is that correct?
So we have software within the financial system that frankly I would turn over to Ms. Burke to be able to explain that further. But there's levy modeling software that allows for basically looking at our current budget and projecting through all calculations that none of us will understand what the best millage would be in an ideal world. And it did show 16 mills. It was very consistent with that, with all the factors that were placed into that levy modeling software.
So is the 9.9 going to keep the system whole, or are we still like struggling?
Well, here's I think the reality, and this is year 25 for me in education, so I've been around this a few times. If we were to be out on the ballot for a 16 mil levy, I think we would be back in November having it failed already, because 16 mils is a very large number. Very rarely, if ever, will a double-digit levy pass. Historically in the state of Ohio, it just doesn't happen. And the finance committee understood that. So getting to a single-digit approach, does it make it whole? It doesn't make it whole forever, and it doesn't make it whole for as long as we would like. But this is what we felt was the most reasonable ask of, again, telling the story and explaining the reason why, and knowing that there's going to be a time in the future where this 9.99 mil levy would not last forever. So it's certainly a great question. This doesn't get us to where we truly need to feel comfortable for a long period of time, but it will get us to be comfortable for a period of time before we were to continue. But it's important to note that even while this would be comfortable for a shorter period of time, it does not bring any new programs, new resources, new services to the district. This is just maintaining what we currently have. And then when the opportunity presents itself to have kind of good operational management as a school district, we would take the opportunity to save costs everywhere we can, much like all of us do in our own home budgets. Anytime we can save money without having a significant impact, we will do that. And we can do that through a number of different ways, primarily with staffing. About 72% or so of our budget is related to staffing. And so that's always, for all districts, that's the largest part of our budget, because we're a people business.
So watching the chart you had up there, was it 2027 when the carriage turns into a pumpkin again?
That's pretty close, yes. Yeah. So I would also say that this is a forecast, and much like the forecast of the snowstorm that happened maybe on Sunday last week, you know how as we get closer to that potential snowstorm, we get more and more detail and specific of how the impacts are going to be. It's very similar to a 5-year forecast. We can see pretty closely what 1 year out looks like. When you get to 3, 4, and 5 years, it becomes a much broader scope of what that forecast is, because that's looking into multiple years ahead, the biennium budget, what the legislature does with that budget. It's a moving target. So it is a projection. And those in the financial world and the education world are always going to be conservative with that approach, because you want to make sure that you're being always fiscally conservative in your projections.
Thank you.
Sure.
Other members of council, administration, anybody else? Okay, so for people watching online who are obviously not here, something you need to be aware of. The school district is a separate taxing authority from the city of Reading. Two separate things. That's why the school district was able to put I guess it's going to the ballot in May.
It is.
So they put it on the ballot already, so do your research. And in your research, I remember the slide you had up here were curtailment of certain educational opportunities. One thing that you may consider in your research, if you are not aware of this, is a program called College Credit Plus. You can find it on the ODE website, plenty of rules surrounding it. Check it out. Mr. Enix, anything further?
No, I'd just like to thank you for the opportunity to be here. And again, please feel free to reach out at any time. We are happy to answer any questions people may have.
Thank you. We do have a second presenter, and that is Mr. John Putnam from the Unicity Project. Mr. Putnam, you have the floor.
I'll briefly introduce Mr. Putnam. I heard his presentation at a recent Hamilton County Municipal League meeting, and I thought it'd be worthwhile for him to present the program to council tonight and the public. Over the last 24 months, this is from his literature, over 24 months, the Unicity Project has deployed over 1,500 Wi-Fi hotspots regionally to drive economic development and address digital equity issues, including in communities near the city of Reading. With that, I'll let Mr. Putnam.
Yes.
You're on.
Great. If you don't mind, please make good use of that microphone. I will. But if you don't mind, I will take it apart and come over here. Thanks, Mark. As Mark said, I'm John Putnam. I'm director of Unicity, which is the smart city practice for Cincinnati Bell. I'm joined by Ryan Satzker, who's the account manager for the city of Reading, and Ted Heckman, who is our director of government affairs at Cincinnati Bell. So I realize the only thing standing between your families and an adult beverage is me, so I'll try to make this as brief as possible. So go ahead, Ryan. When we talk about a smart city, everybody has a different answer for what a smart city is. So I always start by saying, here's what a smart city means to us. It's an environmental ecosystem where we focus in on fiber optics. We need that data backbone because smart cities generate a lot of data. And then we at Cincinnati Bell focus in on the public Wi-Fi. Now, all of these other things that go into a smart city are companies that we partner with. So if you want a kiosk, if you want cameras, if you want flow-based traffic control, we have partners that do all of these things that we work with. So we're happy to bring those in because each community is different. But we focus in at Cincinnati Bell on the fiber optics backbone and the public Wi-Fi. So, as Mark mentioned, we've been very successful with this program. We started with the banks during the All-Star game in 2015. But as you'll see from the slide, we've been very successful in deploying these. And I was sharing with someone earlier tonight that I have this band across northern Hamilton County from Colerain Township to Mount Healthy to Springfield Township to Lockland to Deer Park. Reading is the donut hole in my smart city implementation, so I'm very excited to be here and talk about the potential of lighting up Reading with some smart city technology. Go ahead, Ryan. So when we talk about public Wi-Fi, it's not just an internet connection. It's what we call intelligent Wi-Fi. So what we do is we connect with people and visitors and residents when they're in your community. We gain insight into those people who are visiting, and then we use a tool to engage with them, share information with them, and drive business activity, economic development, and all of these other things that we'll talk about. The solutions that we provide are enterprise-grade, high-speed Wi-Fi solutions. So it's not something that you can buy at Micro Center that you would put in your home. These are large enterprise-grade access points that allow up to several hundred people to join at one time. And with our fiber backbone, we can provide the speed that's needed for them to have a good experience on the Wi-Fi. Go ahead, Ray. I'm very visually oriented, so I thought I would share what we're doing next door in the city of Lockland. We've created a partnership with the Village of Lockland and with the Lockland school system to put these Wi-Fi access points throughout the community. When you come to Lockland, we have signage. We have all these different ways to let you know that the Wi-Fi is there. But when you take out your phone and try to log in, you'll be presented with a screen that asks for your name and your email address and your age. We ask for your age for some very good reasons. We're not allowed to engage anyone under the age of 12 or 13 with marketing messages. So we want to establish that right away, that we're not sending marketing messages to children. And then you can log in to the Wi-Fi. If any of you have thrown through CVG,
This is the exact same hardware and the exact same software provided by Cincinnati Bell that they're using there. When you come back, we automatically recognize you. As you see here, welcome back, Joe. And then you log in. And then what we do is now we start that engagement process. So think of, I'm bridal shopping on Benson Street. I see free public Wi-Fi signs. I log into the Wi-Fi. I get to the point that I now have a landing page. So I'm standing down on Benson Street and I can look and see where shopping, where are restaurants, where are bars, where are things located around me. So I say, okay, I'm done with my shopping. I need a drink and something to eat. I click on the buttons, and it also will give me a listing of all the restaurants or bars in the area. I click on one I'm interested in, and it will actually give me walking instructions on how to get to it. So we're really looking at, once we bring people to the community, how do we keep them in the community? How do we get them to spend more time and more money within the community and drive that economic development? And this is the first step in that process. And again, we have some sponsorship opportunities, and we'll talk about monetization a little bit later. Go ahead, Ryan. One of the interesting things that we were talking about earlier, and I think it's important given that we've talked about schools so much tonight, one of the questions we ask when you log into the Wi-Fi in Laughlin is, are you a student? If you answer that question as yes, from that point on, every time you visit the Wi-Fi, I take you directly to the Laughlin School System's website. Adults would be, restaurants, bars, and shopping, but the kids go all directly to the Laughlin Schools website. There are 800 some odd kids in the Laughlin School District. We have over 600 of them that have logged in and used the free public Wi-Fi in the last year alone. So it's well used, and we see that they're using it for 30, 40, 50, an hour when they do log in. So we know they're using it and using it often. Go ahead, Ryan. One of the big concerns, we heard it earlier, we don't have staff. You don't have to create content with this program. When I click on the button that says events, it takes me to the website once we get that up and running. And now I'm not recreating information. It's just links to different websites that have that information already on there. So you can have a business owners association and have some of the business information there. You can have the city's website with events. You can draw all of those different websites with content that's already out there, Facebook pages, social media, and just have these buttons be links to those social media so you're not recreating content and spending money and time on that content. Go ahead, Ryan. Now, one of the really cool things, we talked about, I ask your name and your email address and your age the first time you log in. Every time you come back, I have the opportunity to ask you what we call progressive profiling question. So if you'll see right here, it says, are you male or female? Are you a resident? Are you a visitor? What's your gender? All of those things are that we ask questions. We're starting to build a database about your visitors and have a better understanding of those visitors. So back to that connect, insight, and engage. Now we're gaining insight into the people that visit your community. So, as I said before, we generate a ton of data. So just by visiting a community that has our public Wi-Fi, your cell phone, every single one in this room, or 99% of us, have the Wi-Fi turned on in our cell phone. So this device is pinging that access point in my smart city. I see this device. I don't know that it's John Putnam. I don't know anything about me, but I know that there is someone there. So we start to gather this anonymous data. How do people move through the community? How long are they there? How many people come to events? How many times have you had an event in the park and you go, looks like 500 people. With this technology, you now know exactly how many people are there, how they got there, and how they moved through the community. Then once you log in, that's when we start getting the registered user data, and I start building out that portfolio. I now know your gender, your age, that you're a resident, how often you visit, how long you stay, that type of information as a registered user. And then we can add in external data, weather data. You have a party in the park or a concert in the park. Why were there 500 people here one night and 1,000 people the next night? Well, it was cloudy and rainy and cold. So now we can start bringing that data in so we have a better understanding of people. Go ahead, Ryan. So what's it look like? So this is actual data from one of our customers, and you can see that the majority of the visitors are Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 or 6 o'clock, and the most visited time is Thursday afternoon. Fairly typical for a business district in that most people there are to work. But it's interesting, one of the things that we were able to share with them is that most of the businesses within this community were open on Sunday and closed on Monday. They're open on the least visited day within their community, and they're closed on the 4th busiest day in the community. So we were able to share with them, let's talk about with your local businesses about closing on Sunday and staying open on Monday and taking advantage of more traffic within your community. And again, you can see it over time. October is the busiest month of the year. We correlated with the local businesses and were able to see that that was their best month in terms of sales as well. Again, back to that age and gender, you can see that 20 to 29-year-old males are the most frequent users of the technology. And then you can see over time how many people are actually using the system on a daily basis. And then one of the things that we did, City of Covington was one of the earlier adopters of this technology. We had a business lunch and learn session. You think about it, Kroger spends billions of dollars on their data intelligence. They have a whole division that knows everything about you, where your eyes are, what you do. This gives us the opportunity to share some of this information with the local businesses and help them compete so that the small businesses have some of this intelligence. Who's visiting? How often are they visiting? What are the demographics? So hopefully they can help improve their businesses. Go ahead, Ryan. So we talked about people connecting. We talked about people gaining insight into those people. And now let's talk about engagement. Included in our software package is an email tool that allows us to engage with people. So we can say everybody that attended an event at the park, a concert at the park, let's send them all an email and tell them what this week's concert's going to be. If I attended Benson Street, I can now send out an email and say, hey, there's a bridal show, there's this special. So now you have this email engagement tool that allows you to proactively engage people and attract them to your community. So from a business development standpoint, think about the opportunity to rent a space on Benson Street and be able to tell a potential business that's going to locate there, here's how many people drove down Benson Street. Here's how many people walked down Benson Street. Here's their age. Here's their demographics. And oh, by the way, if you locate in our community, we have an email tool that you can engage with all those visitors and talk about your grand opening and drive business to your community. We are right now in the process of doing some pilots with text messaging. So obviously a younger demographic skews more towards being more responsive to text messages than email messages. So we're piloting the text messaging program right now. Go ahead, Ryan. So again, we see this applied in different ways within different communities. So a central business district is a prime example is Benson Street. We get people through window clings and signage and giveaways to log into the Wi-Fi, get a substantial number of people logging into the Wi-Fi. We establish a sense of place. People already think about Reading and think about, Benson Street and the Bridal District. Now we're establishing that sense of place, sharing that information about other things that are in the community, how I can keep people here, after they've done their shopping for restaurants, bars, and everything else. And then be able to analyze that foot traffic and use that as a tool to attract more businesses and ultimately drive economic development. So this is one of the key first things that we've seen with Smart City Solutions is driving that economic development in central business districts. Go ahead, Ryan. Think about this. If you're a small business, what are your choices in terms of advertising and marketing? You can't afford TV. You can't afford radio. So what really are your options? We give the local businesses a marketing option that, you know, everybody that visited the city of Laughlin today could get an email at the end of the day saying thank you to Mueller Roofing for, you know, their sponsorship of the Wi-Fi, a little bit about the Mueller family, and then a link to their website. So for a few $100s, they now have an advertising medium that reaches hundreds, if not thousands, of people that have visited the community, and gives them a chance to advertise their products. Go ahead, Ryan. So what I just talked about was how I spent the first 5-6 years of Smart City. Then this little thing called COVID came along. And we really didn't push a lot of people to come out to the central business districts and try to attract them to events and everything else. But one of the things that we did see was that parks and public spaces became very popular. I've spent more time in parks in the last 2 years than I have at any time in my life because parks are still busy. People are still visiting parks. People who work from home have the opportunity to get out of the house. Social distance, we still have some sporting events. So there's a lot of communities that are having us light up parks. So I mentioned Colerain Township. Colerain Township just lit up 4 or 5 of their parks. Edgewood, Kentucky is lighting up their parks. So we're seeing a lot of this. And again, it gets back to engaging with people while they're visiting the park, giving them information about the amenities within the park, and then what are upcoming events so that we can drive more attendance to the events in the park. Go ahead, Ryan. And here's an example. In City of Edgewood, they have a large park and they have an event center there. So I may come to the playground with my kid, I may go and watch a sporting event, I may be there to play tennis or walk my dog or whatever, and I may not even know that they have an event center in the backside of the park. So by logging in and giving me your email address, now I can send you information about other events and amenities within the park and attract those people to those amenities. Go ahead, Ryan. And then one of the largest applications of this technology in the last couple of years has been digital equity. Cincinnati Public Schools sent 36,000 kids home and said, you're going to learn remotely. 6,000 of them dropped off the face of the earth, never logged in once, not once. Think of, and certainly the superintendent can attest to this, think of how it's changed the education world in terms of those kids having to remote learn. And then you've got a whole group of kids who don't have the ability to log in like you and I do and take advantage of the internet to continue that education process after 3 o'clock. So we worked with a number of locations. Laughlin is actually one of them. We worked with the superintendent of Laughlin Schools. We looked at the addresses for the students that were on the subsidized lunch program, identified areas in which those students were in need, and then we went out and put public Wi-Fi where those kids live so that they could continue the education process after 3 o'clock. If we did have remote schooling, they had some place to go and log in. We did a large project up in Dayton where we lit up 5 housing authority properties up there. But it's great for low-income residents that don't have the financial wherewithal to buy high-speed internet. We now provide that for them. It's also great for adults. I mean, all of us do banking online. All of us do telehealth, telemedicine. Now we're providing all of those same things, access to benefits that they may or may not have had the ability to do prior to having the free public Wi-Fi. So certainly we're collecting a ton of data and showing, that hundreds of thousands of people are taking advantage of the free public Wi-Fi that we've installed regionally. And we're making a difference in that education, the health, and the job readiness of people within the community. Go ahead, Ryan. And then it's a great opportunity for you as a community to engage residents with all sorts of things. So these are a couple of examples that I showed Mount Healthy. We're installing right there today. During COVID, how do we get updates about information out to people? This is a great way to connect with your residents. Some of those who may not take the time to visit your website, you can at least send them an email or a text message. And then when programs come up. So the rent, utility, and assistance programs that were, uses of the CARES Act money were all great things that we could communicate to people and get them involved with. Go ahead, Ryan. So, just like our friends at the school system, you're all sitting there going, oh my gosh, Putnam, how are we going to pay for this? Last time I checked, Reading doesn't have a money tree down here that we're just going to go and shake. In Deer Park, Cheviot, Lockland, and Mount Healthy, we're able to acquire funding from Hamilton County for all of those Wi-Fi projects. Hamilton County has dedicated $10 million as part of their ARPA funds to public Wi-Fi and internet projects. So sometime in the second quarter of this year, they're going to release the funding requirements. As I said, we were lucky enough to secure funding for 4 of our customers last year from Hamilton County. And then one of the things that we've been doing and what we've learned is that partnerships between the community and the schools bring us different funding opportunities as well. So both Lockland and Mount Healthy, we were able to partner with them and secure funding from the state of Ohio. So I'm here today to say, here are some of the things that we could do. Here are some of the things we're doing within other communities. Let's start thinking about what we could do within Reading, and let's start putting pencil to paper and getting that pricing done so that when Hamilton County does release their funding, that our paper goes right in on top and that we have a better chance of securing funding as part of that Hamilton County project. And then let's talk about how we can get some matching funds from the state of Ohio to fund these types of projects. And then we are releasing this month as part of our user group for our smart cities, a monetization playbook. So how do you go to businesses along Benson Street and sell advertising to pay for the monthly costs of this? How do you go to a Mueller Roofing and say, hey, what about Reading? We're just across the bridge. We got, your customers too. And show them the numbers of the people that are logging in and engaging on the Wi-Fi and how it can be a great opportunity for those businesses to advertise and generate that funding that allows you to sustain this going forward so that we don't have to turn the switch off in a couple of years when the government funding runs out. So my question to you tonight, and obviously it's rhetorical, I don't expect an answer tonight, is can we find parks, can we find business district, and can we find pockets of disadvantaged people who could benefit from free internet connectivity within the city of Reading and start making those plans today so that we're ready when these funding sources become available. Anybody have any questions?
So let's start with members of council. Anybody, members of council? Mrs. Edichico. Please use the microphone.
Is there a cost on the city's end to send out the emails and the communications?
Two-part answer. Emails, no cost. The email program is built into the software package that we provide that does all of this that I've showed you tonight. Text messaging, there is a cost associated with that. And that's because we partner with a text messaging company that actually sends the messages out. And there's about a 7-8 cent per text message cost. And you think about it, if I send 1,000 text messages out, it's just a couple of bucks. As long as you're not doing it every day and annoying your users, you're doing it on a weekly basis, it's not a very expensive option to connect. And what we're seeing in other places is that the younger demographic skews more towards being more willing to respond to a text message than they do to an email message. So we think that a combination of the two and using some of those demographics to determine, you can even lower that cost even more because you're going to send the old guy an email because I'll open it, but send my 18-year-old daughter a text message because she will never open an email in a million years.
Other questions, members of council? General audience. I'm supposed to get vote from council to approve this, but they're out there. Not if you're okay with general public. Okay, general public people. Any questions for Mr. Putnam? None, really? I have one. How good is the resolution on the Wi-Fi? You can tell a difference between driving and walking through the city. Are you able to report to the police who's speeding?
No. We can tell, we don't have that level of accuracy, let's put it that way. But our partners who do sell cameras do have the ability with the cameras to do license plate recognition and do speeding off of the cameras. So I can't do it off the Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi accuracy is to within 15, 20 feet. By the time you multiply that out, I can't tell you how fast you're going. But I can't tell that you were driving because you came through in 3 minutes versus somebody who walked through in 30 minutes. So I have that level of accuracy to tell walk through drive, but not how fast you were going. But one of the interesting things that we are doing in parks is back to your cell phone is pinging my Wi-Fi access points. Most bad guys have cell phones in their pockets with the Wi-Fi turned on. They show up at the parks, they're in there at 3 o'clock in the morning. Chances are they're not playing Frisbee golf at 3 o'clock in the morning. Their cell phones ping my Wi-Fi access points, and I can set up those times of day and say, I really don't want people in my park between midnight and 5 o'clock. When a cell phone pings my access point in the park, let's go ahead and send an email to dispatch or a text to dispatch and have a car roll by and have a look at what they're up to.
Very good add-on. Any other questions? Yes, Mrs. Owens.
How secure is it in terms of, is there encryption, or how secure is it for just the general person to use?
Great question. Probably the number 2 question I get after how the heck are we going to pay for this, Putnam? It's very secure. It has content filtering, so we make sure that people are not looking at things they shouldn't look at, so we don't have to worry about that. And it does have the ability for people to use VPNs and do all those things that you do from home to connect to your businesses and be secure in those areas. And then we are as secure as we can make it in a corporate environment, that we disable the ability for one device to see another device on the network. So we enable all of those same things that you would do at a corporate level to ensure security. Is it perfect? No. But I can tell you that I do my banking and check my bank accounts on the public Wi-Fi all the time, and I feel very secure in doing so. And we have people who use this for telehealth and telemedicine, and you know, we do everything we can to make it as secure as possible for those people to be able to conduct banking and health on the Wi-Fi.
Did I see another hand?
He's either coming to ask a question or kill me.
Yeah, I've had enough.
Let's open the question.
As far as businesses go, how many in Deer Park, Laughlin, how many businesses do you have involved, and you know, how long have each of those cities been using it, and how many businesses are involved, and what does it cost for a business to get involved to sponsor?
Great question. Number 3 question. It's a relatively new technology. You saw the City of Covington listed as one of our early adopters, and they were probably ahead of most people with Renaissance Covington and City of Covington. And they have sponsors and have been doing it for 3 years. The newer locations, as you saw on the chart, the last 2 years has seen an explosion in this technology, and everybody asks us, how do we do this? How much should we charge? How do we approach people? How do we market it? And that's why we developed this marketing playbook that we just now are rolling out next month. So the short answer is Deer Park is just being installed. City of Wyoming has only been up and running for a year now. So we're in its infancy of that marketing program, but that's why we're launching this whole program that starts next month. To teach communities how they can use it as a tool to monetize it, and the businesses to sponsor it. So it's in its infancy, but we're very confident that businesses will look at this and say, hey, I'm a small business. What are my marketing opportunities? This is a great way to reach residents, drill down and find my demographic, and that, you know, it's community involvement as well. So, You know, when my dad bought that ad in the high school program when I was a kid in high school at Finneytown, he did it as much because he was being involved with Finneytown and supporting his kids. I think that you're going to find a lot of businesses that say, hey, I'm supporting Reading, I'm supporting Laughlin, I'm supporting my community by advertising on this platform. And yes, it's a great tool, but it's also a way for me to give back to the community.
Any other questions? I came up with one more. Are your frequency ranges published on your website?
The Wi-Fi uses the standard 2.4 and 5 range, 5 gigahertz ranges. The locations are publicized, and literally our marketing team works with the municipality on ribbon cutting ceremonies, signage, giveaways. We will provide you tickets with Reds games, Bengals games, Dayton Dragons games to drive more people to log in. So we do everything we can to let people know where it is and how to log in and what the instructions are and everything else. If you want to get into the specifics of channel sizes and everything else, we can share that with you, but that's not something that most people care about. But it is 2.4 and 5 gigahertz.
Is it the rest of that on your website?
Yes.
Okay.
And if not, we have our own dedicated website. Wow, I don't even have it up here. It's unicity.cincinnati-bell, or cincinnatibell.unicity.
How about Super Bowl tickets?
You got to buy a lot of Wi-Fi to get Super Bowl tickets these days.
Last call for questions. All right, seeing none, we're going to move on to the next item
Thank
on
you.
the agenda. Thank you, Mr. Putnam.
Thanks, John.
All right, so next on the agenda is executive session. There is not one scheduled, and I guess there's no reason to have one at this point. Anybody? Okay. Administrative official reports. Mr. Betts.
Well, thank you. I'll go through some things very quickly. Again, the reminder to everybody, call 911, any police, fire, EMS emergencies. So please, again, do that. We do not have dispatchers and 911. Please remember to move cars from the streets if you can, any snow and ice emergencies, and people are telling us there's another one heading our way. It helps them tremendously in dealing with that. Our Reading Police Department was awarded a partial grant for body-worn cameras. The amount is $24,712. Our police chief will be here soon to go over that in more detail. I think with another $7,000 from us, it would get us 5 years of coverage with these body-worn cameras. I think we will store the information in-house, and so that won't have the expensive cloud cost that has worried us for years here and has kind of held us back, because cloud storage can get to be very, very expensive from what I'm told. So our police chief will be here soon, and we'd like to get the car cameras as well. The grand total there would probably be over $50,000, but administration's going to recommend body cameras and car cameras. They're both very beneficial for us here at City Hall as well as for our public. So anyway, we'll push and promote that. Our recycling dumpsters are now at the city garage. I know they're not being used very much. They were getting filled each and every week, but they're there. The garage is open 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Monday through Friday. Our police department received more than 1,300 calls for service last month. And one of the reasons I say that, and I know Shelley will report on this too, as we get calls on things, we want everybody to know how many calls we get for responses, each and every day and each and every month. And a lot of them are very serious. Child abuse calls, domestic violence calls, theft calls. And I'm here to tell you all, Reading is a safe community. And it is. However, that being said, you know, we get calls on, you know, this or that. Investigations take time. And we have those things here too. So we have to prioritize here and deal with serious matters. And so anyway, we have to prioritize. Caney Park restrooms are being remodeled. So hopefully by spring, they'll be well on their way. We've already used $29,000 worth of salt in the 3 snow events. They're not cheap to do. That doesn't count labor. That was just 29 grand in salt. The water main work on Thorn Ridge is ongoing. Again, we appreciate everybody's patience. It is over a $2 million project. Best guesstimate, you know, is the end of the summer for that to be done. But as everybody knows, in construction, weather can play a big part in that, and surprises when you're digging underground and widening streets and this, that, and the other. But we'll keep you posted on that. Again, it's over $2 million. $1 million of that was in grant funding. We're going to widen the street 3 feet. It'll have a new 8-inch water main underneath it, which will substantially improve water pressure. All brand new sidewalks. It's going to be a great improvement there. Nido Avesia has purchased the former Nivison property. Again, along with the body cameras, you know, we've been talking about body cameras for 3, 4, 5 years, and you know, we finally came up with a way to not only lessen expenses, but also, you know, received a grant that's going to help us. You know, the same is true with Avesia expanded. You know, we wanted a top-notch company with high-paying jobs, and patience has paid off there. And it's a company that's added over 100 new jobs in the last few years here in our city. Excellent new tax revenue, and there's quite a bit more to come. It's probably going to be a couple years before new buildings, but they're moving forward with it. The demolition of the old Drake Motel and Carousel building in Sycamore Township should start within the next several months, begin the process of bringing this high potential real estate back to its highest and most productive use. And, you know, across the street, you know, that side of Reading Road, the west side is Sycamore Township, the east side's Reading. It'll help us with that as well. Our Reading Community Fine Arts Center is open. We're hoping everyone will come and see and support. Answer non-emergency. Either here and giving this information. That's it for me. Thank you.
807 $79,333.
For her report, and even though we are a couple percentage points down from last year, it looks like taxes are coming in at a great pace. And then I'd also just like to mention Sabrina's audit that Bo just mentioned, and seems like it went very well, so well that they're already past 2020 and on to 2021, and that's going well also. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Bronner. Utilities, Lands, and Buildings, Mr. Bishop.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have only to report that our first meeting of the Utilities, Lands, and Buildings Committee will be held on Tuesday, February 22nd at 6:30 in the caucus room. The meeting is being held to discuss the committee's goals for 2022.
So for those who are paying attention, it's 2-2-2-2-2.
Sounds like a lottery point. So I'd remember it.
Thank you, Mr. Bishop. Zoning, Planning, and Environment, Mr. Powell.
No report this evening.
No report. Laws and Contracts, Mrs. Adichico.
Thank you, Mr. President. I held a Laws and Contracts Committee meeting on Tuesday, January 25th, where we discussed the rules and regulations governing council procedures. In attendance was Mr. Pell, Mr. Boehner, and Mayor Bemis. The updated rules and regulations were sent out on Saturday to all members of council with the changes and additions suggested during my meeting, including suggestions from Mayor Bemis and Patrick Ross and our clerk of council. I hope everyone had a chance to review them. I do have 3 items that I would like to make a motion on at the end of my report. First, I would like to make a motion to approve the updated rules and regulations. Second, I would like to make a motion to keep the committee chairs and committee members as they stand upon adoption of the updated rules and regulations. And third, I would like to make a motion to approve Scott Tommen as our council sergeant in arms. So if we're good with that, I can move ahead and make a motion.
Can I comment on that?
Discussion?
I've not received the new rules. Now, part of that is because if you sent to the old email address, that's not be able to access it. The new email address, I'm been working with Patrick to try to set that up. Patrick and I have had a hard time getting connected over the last week or so. But I like to table it until I get better looking at it. There was some concern, as I mentioned last week, and Bo was here, that Patrick had a list of questions about the rules. At no time did I ever say that the police chief, fire chief, and chief of public works are required to be at a council meeting or committee council. That's always been, you ask them if they can make it. You don't demand they show up because you got to be respectful of their time. And that's, Bo said the same thing. So, I mean, I don't know where that came from. But there just seemed to be a lot of questions that I didn't quite understand. And I haven't had a chance to talk to Patrick with his busy schedule last week or so. So I have a chance, I'm going to talk to him about that further. We do have a meeting with Thursday, Bo, at noon?
At noon, yes.
Noon. So hopefully this week I'd have that straightened out and at least get some answers back to him.
Okay, so, Mr. Boehner, did I hear a motion to table?
Yes, a motion to table the rules, council rules.
Is there a second motion to table the adoption of council rules at this time?
I'll second it.
Mr. Tommen, second. So I'll do the roll call. Mr. Powell,
Yes.
Mr. Bronner,
Yes.
Mr. Bishop,
Yes.
Mr. Boehner,
Yes,
Mr. Tommen,
Yes.
Mrs. Kroger,
Yes.
Mrs. Edichico.
Yes.
So the rules are tabled. The consideration, it doesn't mean they're gone. It just means we got to bring them up at a different
You have a
meeting.
copy. I tried both of your emails. I didn't get a bounce back, so I thought maybe they did go through, but I brought
Okay.
some copies just in case.
Please pass it down.
Then can we go ahead and, can I make a motion to nominate Scott Tommen as our council sergeant in arms?
One moment, please. Let me,
Yeah.
making some notes. No problem with that motion, but let me make some notes. Who seconded that last one? Was that on the motion table?
I did.
Scott, thank you. Okay, so please restate your motion.
I would like to make a motion to nominate Scott Tommen as our council sergeant in arms.
I'll second that motion.
So we have a motion by Mrs. Edichico and a second by Mr. Boehner to, what are we doing? You're calling him, you're calling him Sergeant at Arms, but,
Yes.
okay,
Nominate
to
Scott
nominate,
Tommen.
to nominate Mr. Thomas Sergeant at Arms. Sorry, doing too many things at the same time. Roll call, please. Well, that's me. Mr. Powell,
Yes.
Mr. Bronner,
Yes.
Mr. Bishop,
Yes.
Mr. Boehner,
Yes,
Mr. Tommen,
Yes.
Mrs. Kroger,
Yes.
Mrs. Edichico.
Yes.
7 yes.
And don't worry, that won't change your tax bracket then.
It's a thankless task. It's like taking out the trash.
you're just the biggest guy here, Scott, that's why it goes.
It's COVID weight, man.
Wrestling coach or something? Mrs. Edichico, you had a third one.
That was the third one.
That was the third one?
The second one we'll have to table as well because it goes kind of hand in hand with updating voting on the rules with the committees. So we'll table that as well. And other than that, that's all I have for tonight.
Okay. Sorry, taking notes. All righty, so we are through laws and contracts, public health and safety, Mrs. Kroger.
Thank you. As Mayor Bemis said, our calls for service for the police department for January were 1,312. 31 of those were auto accidents. There were 162 booking of original charges and a total criminal charges of 217. Total citations issued were 314. And runs for the fire department for January, our EMS responses were 234, and our fire responses were 40, with 7 of those being an all-call, for total responses of 274.
Did you send that to Mrs.
It's already,
Coster?
she's already got it.
Okay. And you too?
Yes.
All right, good, because I can't write that fast. All right, service, Mr. Boehner.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Chief of Public Works sent me the report. The city crew is out patching potholes in the streets. The mulcher's been out collecting branches. They had a large number of water main breaks in Holly Drive, South Cathwood, Waxwing Drive and Blue Ash, West Crest Drive, East Benson Street, Bunny Court, and on Hunt Road just east of Sanborn. All have been patched and back in and roadways repaired. The service guys do a great job on the water main because if they don't fix those water mains pretty quick, our profits are going right down the sewer. That's why they jump on those real quick. And obviously they try to get everything patched up before whatever comes this weekend's gonna come. City repaired catch basin on Market Street and Vine Street. City crews are also taking down Christmas decorations throughout the city. The city has 3 snow events so far, and they've used approximately 400 tons of salt so far this year. City crews have been working on remodeling the restroom at Buchanan Park with a new facelift on the interior. City crews are doing the water locates for the new service lines on Thurmage Drive for water connections. The most impressive thing I saw the other day was probably about 23 or 24 degrees outside, and our guys were out there helping the Alita crew pour concrete, put the connections in, the whole 9 yards. At that temperature, it was phenomenal to watch those guys do that. Snow emergency. The mayor mentioned that snow emergency. I don't know if Patrick knows this, but you might want to remind him. The only one that can call snow emergency is the safety service director. I had to do that one time when I was in Myrtle Beach. But for a lot of people, snow emergency means get your vehicle off the street as soon as possible. I know it's tough down here in the valley, and some of the other streets are narrow, but we've got to get those streets cleaned, and they cannot get down some of these streets and get them cleaned. If you leave this car in the street, it gets plowed under with salt, with ice and snow. That's just going to be the brakes. They don't like to do that, but their main #1 job is to get that street cleaned up, and they do a fantastic job doing that. I talked to Shelley and Andy tonight. The service committee is going to meet on February 15th at 6:30, probably here in the council chambers because the CIC has a meeting that same night. We want to discuss the capital needs and special projects in the service department for the coming year. That's all I have. I will send this to Carla.
Use her personal email account
Yes, no,
from yours, because you can't get out. Ask me how I know. All right, recreation, Mr. Tommen.
Yeah, thank you. Just have a few announcements. First of all, we're still accepting applications to work at the pool this summer for lifeguards and concession workers. Applications can be found here at City Hall. We did ask the counselor at the school to send this out through final forms. That's what Susan told me. I don't know if that made it through or not. I'll double check on that tomorrow. The city Easter egg hunt will take place on Saturday, April 16th, 10 o'clock at the Field House. Reading Litter Cleanup Day will be Saturday, April 23rd, be 10 to noon. We'll meet at Kennig Park, the small shelter, or you can meet at St. Peter and Paul Cemetery on Reading Road. And lastly, pool signups will be the first 3 Saturdays in May. That's the 7th, the 14th, and the 21st from 10 to noon at the Field House. That's all.
All good? Okay. Can you send that to
Done.
Carl? Thank you. All righty. Other business. So new business discussion. We probably have a good discussion of some of the things that our presenters brought forth to us if you want that tonight, or you can bring it up next week, whatever you want to do, or next meeting. Anybody? Anybody?
I think we ought to bring it up next meeting. I think a lot of us are still trying to absorb all the information we got tonight.
Okay. All right, seeing no other business, we have no resolutions that I'm aware of, none on the agenda, and no ordinances I'm aware of, unless somebody has a surprise for us. Okay, good, no surprises. I like no surprises. And any miscellaneous business?
Mr. President, I just want to acknowledge a thank you note that I received from a young friend, Addie. It says, "Thank you for all you've done." Appreciate that. I haven't done a whole lot so far, but we're getting there.
Yeah, I got one from Annabelle, so thank you, Annabelle. I don't know who you are, but whoever did these nice cards.
I think those came from St. Peter and Paul Academy, but one of the best days here every year is when Reading School's third grade comes through. It's a wonderful day here.
Yeah, much appreciated.
Yes.
Yeah, they are neat, aren't they?
Yeah, 1 month on the job. I
Yeah.
guess.
How you like that? You're doing a great job.
So for those parents, if they really want to surprise their children, whoever did these, and they want to bring them to council sometime, we'd be happy to meet them, I'd say.
Absolutely.
Any other miscellaneous business?
I'll motion to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn by Mr. Boehner and second by Mr. Bronner.
Goodness gracious, y'all get the free T-shirt for the attendance, so.
So roll call. Actually, we'll just do it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.